You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Thursday night, March 13th, 2025, as we record this new episode. So, in our previous podcast, we looked at the White Sox projected opening day roster based on how spring training was going. We were pretty confident that Colson Montgomery was going to be the opening day shortstop for the White Sox. Have felt that way since the winter meetings when general manager Chris Getz didn't think it was necessary to bring in a veteran shortstop. The day that podcast episode came out and the White Sox optioned Colson Montgomery. So what's the plan at shortstop now? We'll ponder about that. Stand in amazement of how Miguel Vargas is performing this spring training as he's hitting .400. It's also fantasy baseball season. Who would you take with the number one overall pick? And the Tampa Bay Rays are scrapping their plans and building a new stadium in St. Petersburg. Lots to discuss, so let's get started. Joining me are Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. Hello, guys. And before we get started with the baseball talk, we do have some exciting news to tease. So, Jim, I will give you the floor of what is upcoming.
Yes. Next week, we are unveiling Sox Machine 3.0. We are moving to the lead platform. If you're familiar with sites like Defector, they are on the lead platform. For those who were perpetually annoyed by the Patreon paywall and struggled to have, whether it's login durations or just the credentials going through, not being able to read some content, but able to access others, your nightmare will be over because this move will solve all those problems. Like this is, we got by on Patreon for a long time. Patreon was a very good first solution for us because our podcast was, mostly the premium offering that we had with a few articles sprinkled in here and there. Patreon is a very good podcast platform, so no knock on Patreon there. But as James joined and we expanded the paywalling of our written content, not so much. That was a case where you could see that the efforts to paywall writing were more of a secondary concern for them for a third-party site or writing that was not on the Patreon platform itself. So we got by for a while, but thanks to everybody's support and patience for sticking with us and supporting us, we're able to make this jump to lead, which was cost prohibitive when we were first, it didn't exist when we first went to Patreon, but kind of thing that would be cost prohibitive were we going there years ago. But because of the support we received and the fact that they take over tech support for me, like I can now outsource all tech support questions rather than being the IT guy for the sites. very happy to pay that nominal fee along with hosting to pass those concerns along to somebody else and take that off my plate. So, we will be rolling that out next week as James heads back to spring training. We've paused the Patreon memberships for the time being. No new members are coming aboard, and members who have been on the platform won't be charged. And when we do unveil the platform, those who are on annual memberships will inherit the terms of their Patreon membership. So say you joined with an annual membership in August, you'll have a membership on lead through August. And then when it's time to re-up, you'll have to enter your payment method on lead. When it comes to monthly memberships, those will be hitting you quick in terms of needing to re-up. So we will be offering plenty of reminders, plenty of FAQs, manuals in terms of how to update or join Sox Machine on the lead platform. But yes, very excited. Been working on it for a few months now, and thank you for everybody who has put up with the less than optimal setup that we've had to get the site off the ground. And this is the next step in that evolution, and should be a lot more of a sophisticated experience for people reading and also commenting.
For the movie fans, this process has been like the movie Speed, where in order to get the passengers off the bus, they had to bring in another city bus and they had to go across the platform. That's kind of how this has been. Like we're running Sox Machine this entire offseason. In the back end, Jim has been building Sox Machine 3.0. So very exciting. Now it's everyone's time to go across the platform over to the new site. And that will be next week. So we're very happy about that. And I can't wait
Hopper in this scenario.
Well, that is a good question. Who would be? Patreon's not the villain here. The WordPress plugins that have been giving us hell for years might be the villain. But no, very exciting news from us, and can't wait for you guys to see the new site. All right, baseball news. None bigger for the Chicago White Sox than Colson Montgomery getting optioned, as the White Sox decided to move him back to AAA to minor league camp. And this move has caused a great deal of speculation in why the White Sox have made this move and what it means for the shortstop position on opening day. James, any insight what you have learned through the grapevine and why Chris Getz and the White Sox made this decision?
At least the answer I've gotten is pointing a lot at the injury. I guess it sidelined him for a week? And on top of that, like his first game back was a little very kind of getting his feel back, and the speculation, or at least the projection, is that from the way he's looked both before and after, it's a bit of he's going to spend the rest of spring getting up to speed, trying to get back to rhythm. Do we really know if that's going to take hold in less than 2 weeks' time, at which point we dump him right and immediately into major league pitching, which we already anticipate some sort of adjustment period. I think either way, whether you just think he's hasn't gotten meaningfully better from the guy who struggled AAA last year, or still have rosy conceptions of him. It's a long levered, tall left-hander with plus power, getting to it. It's not going to be this turnkey process. You thought that the plate discipline would maybe smooth that out a little bit, or give you a 10% walk rate in the meantime while you're seeing him get to his power in games against major league pitching slowly. But that kind of curdled a little bit of AAA when he was dealing with a level of execution that he had dealt with before and being challenged to lay off stuff at the letters. So from their description of it, it almost seems like they wanted him to have the perfect spring training. Obviously does not include a back spasm, to really feel like he was in a good place. They wanted him to really perform to get it. And as much as we kind of sided hey, there's really no long-term competition here, it seems like they did want him to win the job in spring, and the injury didn't really, it just kind of happened right in the middle, where it seems unlikely that you were going to see him snap into action and be at full bore and really win the job on performance, or at least head into the season like hitting really hot, where they're like, this is going to go well. You could put other reasons into that. The only reason to really start him the start of the year is, one, you don't have really other options. It's maybe a marketing standpoint, but as far as like a baseball strategy standpoint, PPI, getting the draft pick back for having him win Rookie of the Year, probably not a great bet. Not like central casting for the guy who wins Rookie of the Year. It's a high school pick that you expect to kind of learn on the job a lot. I wouldn't give him great odds of beating out Jackson Jobe. Whereas the old traditional model of grabbing another year of service time, especially for a team that's, contention window is who knows, but not now, has a little bit more of a straightforward benefit. And I hesitate to like put that on them because it implies that like Colson's ready and they're just being greedy and holding back. But like, we're trying to like, why did they do this? This decision that we all pretty much think is the right one on merit. Like, Colson hasn't really played well enough to like be knocking at the door of the major leagues. So it's a reversal from what we thought they were doing, what we thought they signaled, but it's also like player development wise, like the right call. So it's hard to be like, explain yourself like to them, like too hard. Cause like, yeah, I see it. Send him back to AAA. So their explanation is a lot around the injury. And it's kind of like, was he really just 1 week of missing spring games away from what looked like the plan? But also, it's like, all right, fine. But if this is what gets you to viewing this as kind of more of a slow boil anyway, which it looks like that to everyone, okay, why not?
Yeah, I get that point, James. But what I would be questioning Chris Getz about, Jim, is what's the game plan here at shortstop? Like, from my perspective, this is bad GMing. You were pretty confident in Dallas, Chris Getz, that Colson Montgomery was your plan A, because a certain beat reporter named James Fegan asked you directly about bringing in a veteran shortstop this offseason to provide competition to Colson Montgomery, and you didn't think that was necessary. Here we are on March 13th, a couple of weeks away from opening day, Jim. Who is the shortstop on opening day for the Chicago White Sox? Because for those that are watching on video from our previous slide in the previous episode, crossing off Colson Montgomery, we know Josh Rojas will be part of the infield. We'll talk about Miguel Vargas in a moment, and Andrew Vaughn is there as well. You got to pick three now between Lenyn Sosa, Chase Mydroth, Brooks Baldwin, Brandon Drury, Jacob Amaya, and Brian Ramos. But Ramos still, I think, is just DHing. He's not throwing much, or at least he's on a throwing program. So highly unlikely. But out of those three, Jim, what's the plan here at shortstop for the White Sox? If you had to guess,
can I say Nicky Lopez?
You can
just go off the board.
Off the board.
I see him, not joining the Cubs, their trip to Japan, and just thinking like, it could arrange it for like another month. Like, hey, here's you were a solid professional for us last year. We could really use that kind of solid professionalism again. In between Miguel Vargas at third, maybe, and who knows at second. Josh Rojas is there. Josh Rojas is. Yeah, I think that signing becomes a little bit more valuable here, just in terms of if Vargas isn't looking at third, you got Josh Rojas there. If Lenyn Sosa is not what you want at second, or Mydroth or Baldwin aren't hitting well enough, you have Rojas there. So you have a couple ways to fill in. You could go with like Rojas at short, just see how bad it looks before try to get Jacob Amaya through waivers. Like when they brought back Jacob Amaya, I thought it was mainly just to see if they could hold on to him through spring training and then try to get him to clear waivers at the end of spring training. And everybody's trying to sneak people through and see if that's the way they can keep him in the system as that glove first shortstop that they like having around. So that still seems like plan A for me in terms of their Jacob Amaya projections. But yeah, it's a little awkward right now. I think for me, based on his defense and based on the fact like his plate appearances have been pretty solid, even though the production isn't there, like Brooks Baldwin would be the kind of guy I look at just for if you want enough glove and maybe some upside offensively, I would put him there. But based on the plate appearances so far and the fact that he's like playing in center and second base and moving around a lot, doesn't seem like the White Sox are all that interested in that possibility. So based on the playing time, it's like, well, maybe Jake Amaya, and they just go for the best glove possible in between two infielders that might not be great glove guys if they do go with Vargas, or if they want to pair like Amaya with Vargas to not have the left be such of a sieve. But yeah, it's wide open. I mean, William Bergoya is still getting a lot of action, even though he was an A-ball last year. So it's I think they're still trying to field out. But yeah, it's, it reminds me a little bit of, or the situation had reminded me of the Oscar Colas situation with like Rick Hahn being supremely confident that Colas would be plan A in November of the year that he got the green lights. And it was kind of going down that track of, you sure this is a great idea? You sure? And then all of a sudden he's not so sure, which is good, better for him to see that and pull the brake than not. But, it does, to your point, make you wonder, like, why do you think it was a good idea in the first place? And that's, I think, what we're all wondering here. I think, to go back to your intro saying that, we all thought this was going to happen. I wasn't positive Montgomery would play well enough to get the job, but I thought like they wanted every opportunity for Montgomery to win it, like even holding out to the final week and hoping he'd turn a corner. So the fact that they have this abrupt about face, what was it, March 10th-ish? So more than 2 weeks before opening day. That's, I think, what's surprising. But I guess, if the back injury was there and they see him back and like they just think that they're not putting him in position to succeed or not doing him any favors, maybe that is what just caused that come to Jesus moment. But yeah, I don't have any hunch really in terms of where they're leaning based on who's getting playing time and how and what they're doing with that playing time. I still wonder whether it's Nicky Lopez or somebody else, whether that shortstop's even in the system right now.
I mean, Nicky Lopez is not even on the team right now. So you're going way off the board.
Yeah. And in the system and the team, like on the roster, just if they're waiting for waivers to be like, there's our guy.
Yeah. Well, James, you got news?
No, I recalled seeing him a lot last year. You're saying he's gone?
In the last couple of games for the White Sox at spring training, Chase Mydroth has been the shortstop for the White Sox to at least start games. And Mydroth this spring, go back to Colson Montgomery based on merit, not performing all that well. Maybe it's a back issue. Let's option him. Chase Mydroth also has options. I think he's got one option left. And so far this spring training, he's batting .095 in 21 at-bats. Now his on-base percentage is pretty good for having very few hits. He's got an on-base percentage of .321 thanks to 7 walks, and he has struck out 5 times. But there's not a lot going on contact-wise for Chase Mydroth this spring training. And I think there's some White Sox fans that are wondering, well, let the young kids play. Give Mydroth the start on opening day, James, at shortstop. See how far he takes it. If he feels overwhelmed, well, you could just option him, which is the same argument you made in the previous podcast about Colson Montgomery. If you do start with Montgomery on opening day and he struggles into May, you can still option him down to AAA so you can get his bearings again and learn what he needs to improve upon to be a full-time major leaguer. I find the Chase Mydroth experience at shortstop to be incredibly risky on opening day, especially when you're trying to support your young pitching staff. How viable is that direction for the White Sox with Chase Mydroth? Is this a serious option at opening day shortstop?
What do you feel is incredibly risky? What is at stake? What is at risk?
Incredible risky would be Miguel Vargas at shortstop. Lenine Sosa at third.
Like, them losing and being bad, is that a scenario that's viewed as like risky?
Well, I think if you have Jonathan Cannon starting a game and he gets the Aaron Bummer experience for 4 innings where he's getting the grounders, but the White Sox have committed 3 errors. They can't even make the medium toughness plays in the hole between short and third or up the middle. And Jonathan Cannon now is at pitch 90 he's got like one out of the fourth inning, and now you gotta pull him. Like, that's where I find it to be incredibly risky. Like, the White Sox pitchers doing their job, inducing weak contact, what should be easy outs, but the White Sox defense not able to convert on those easy outs.
Well, yeah, that'd be unideal. At the same time, it's a short-term plan. They are still talking about Colson early in the year and taking the bulk of the reps here. And in that vein, they're talking about having a below-average defensive shortstop for the next 6.5 years. So I think if they can't get through opening day with it, or 2 months, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. They need to get used to it at some point, because they're not going to have peak Rafael Furcal in the corner. That's not the design. So I think at some point they're going to have to be testing their ability to position better, or have better first step reactions, or have a stronger defenders at second and third, ideally. Vargas, I think that'd be, in development, and I don't know, there's only so much Josh Rojas to spread around, possibly a shortstop himself. So yeah, I don't know. They're not building that that structure as convincingly as you might think. They don't have like that big. I think Jacob Gonzalez, and even that is like more of like a guy who just like knows how to play shortstop more than he's like a range freak or like a super fast dude. But yeah, or William Bergoglio, who's just like too many years away and too much uncertainty about the bat to certainly like project him as like a future shortstop. They just don't have like on the infield what I would say like these clear like plus defenders. I think Brian Ramos can be a plus defender if you set him at third, and like that's the long-term plan and that's what's at, but like he can't throw right now. Let alone like, is it clear that they're going to give him the third base job at any point? So as far as like clarity about like when they will have this above average defense, as far as like player allocation, I don't know. It
but that was like a goal though. That was Chris Getz's first goal. He wanted a better White Sox defensive team.
Seems like it has to come through their preparation, their shifting, the stuff they're emphasizing with using data to be better first step wise, or having more pre-pitch movement, just something that generally comes from their new coaching approach, or how they're developing infielders as a whole to have guys who don't have the tools to necessarily plus play closer to average defense based on what they do angle positioning wise. But I don't know if there's really like this big, like the only glove first option that we really have, or somebody who I think would play is a really good bet to play like above average shortstop defense in the organization in 2025 is Jacob Amaya, and they DFA'd that guy this winter. So I don't think that they're planning around that dude. But I think, literally like the blueprint for the White Sox defense includes like below average foot speed at shortstop. So they're either going to like be able to make that work with somebody or they're not. So yeah, my draft doesn't seem ideal for shortstop. You were there. We were together at Sox Fest. As he said, second base was his preferred position, not in a, I refuse to play shortstop. Like, right. If he wasn't happy about it, I think at least his agent would be like, hey, let this ride for a little bit. It might work out for us, buddy. But I think that's probably where he's most chance to do like an above average defender at second base. But he's also kind of like Brooks Baldwin, like he's a utility prospect. He's kind of preparing to just go where they send him to a degree. Right. I don't have a great counter argument to your point. Like, yeah, my draft at shortstop doesn't seem like the buildings of the best defensive infield, which really they need to be to be a competitive team somewhere down the road, because we don't think they're going to be able to pay for top tier offensive talent. But at the same time, it's not in the system right now. Caleb Bottomer, let's see what you got in Kannapolis. We're all watching very patiently, but that's another bat first guy as well. So I don't know. Right. Guess I'll ask Mike Shirley about it in July if he's going to get on that, because I don't necessarily know that there's like a sure. If there's a plus glove shortstop guy in the system, it's usually a big question about their bat and where they'll be. I don't know if there's like a big, what their tent poles are on the infield for like, this is the guy who's of the design of plus defense, but also is going to hit enough that we're sure he's going to be there and we're going to give him a spot. Really don't have any infield spots pegged down for the next 2-3 years other than Colson. which we've talked about, I feel like a fair amount already about what issues are present there.
Yeah, it would be great if Colson recovered from his back injury, played really well in April and May in Charlotte, gets called up in June, and with his athleticism proves that maybe he can be an average defensive shortstop for the Chicago White Sox. At least then you have that question answered. But if the back injuries continue for Colson Montgomery or he continues to play poor defense, if Mydroth can't play short, and the only guy that could really play shortstop are the veteran holdovers who cannot hit, and Jacob Amaya and Nicky Lopez. In the winter meetings in Orlando in December, the question is going to be posed to Chris Getz, like, what is the plan at shortstop? It's one of the most critical positions that you have on the field, and I just don't know if the White Sox, right now, they don't really have much of a plan at shortstop, but long term, when they plan on contending, they do need to figure this out. Hopefully sooner than later.
I know that when I wrote the piece about base running and first step quickness, something that our readers pointed out is what the White Sox really need is hit the ball over the fence focus.
Yep.
And if you think there's someone else on like the White Sox top 30 who's more of the get the ball over the fence address response team than Colson Montgomery, you're just like the biggest George Wolko fan in the world, because otherwise, like, it's Colson as far as like immediate plus power. It's, I think Ramos could be like a 20 home run guy if all clicked. I think Caro and Teal are probably like would cap out around that ceiling as well. As far as like a guy who really transforms the shape of the lineup to more power, especially more left-handed power that they lacked. I think Colson has that unique leash offensively. That makes it really prioritize, like putting him, I guess, wherever you can get him. But as far as
let's see how Brady Montgomery does. Let's see how Brady Montgomery does in his first year.
Brady Montgomery, tools wise, I think is like there, but like zero professional games, so it's hard to like.
Right.
We've reserved the sports car, but nobody's seen it yet, type of situation.
Got it. Yeah, that's a good point. So again, for those that are watching video, but just to address for the podcast listeners, pick three. Three of these guys are making the opening day roster: Lenine Sosa, Chase Mydroth, Brooks Baldwin, Brandon Drury, Jacob Amaya, Brian Ramos, or Jim's pick to click, Nicky Lopez, who is currently not with the Chicago White Sox as we are recording this, but watch, they sign him after we publish this podcast episode. Wednesday night, March 26th, will be opening day eve, co-hosted by Sox Machine and our friends from the 108 at the Ramova Theater. Come join us as we get ready for another season of Chicago White Sox baseball, or at least pretend to be excited. Special guests include Jim Callis of MLB.com, as he'll talk about the top White Sox prospects and answer your questions live about the farm system. Courtney Finicum of Baseball Is Not Boring podcast. She stole the show last year and is ready to dish her predictions for 2025. Jim Margulis and James Fegan will have a live PO Sox segment to answer questions from the audience, and our friends from the 108 will close out the show by making their very wild and entertaining predictions, including the famous steak dinner bet between Beefloaf and I. Tickets are just $20, doors open at 6 p.m., and the show will start at 7:30 p.m. Purchase your tickets at RamovaChicago.com or in the ticket link in this podcast post on SoxMachine.com.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Another pleasant surprise for the White Sox in this spring. We talked about Shane Smith in our previous episode and how well he's been throwing, and we advocate for him to be part of the White Sox starting rotation. I don't know how this happened, but Miguel Vargas is currently batting .400 in spring training for the Chicago White Sox. And Jim, it's just 25 at bats. It is spring training, but the slash line is impressive. Batting .400, a .467 on base percentage, slugging .560. He's got 4 walks and 3 strikeouts. Vargas does have a home run and 4 RBIs. Jim, are you buying Vargas's rapid improvement this spring?
Yes and no. Like, I can buy it in terms of him being an okay professional hitter. Like, he's as bad as he was last year. Like, he shouldn't have been that bad. Like, he looked like he ran out of steam or something was physically bothering him. Like, the swing decisions were fine and the ball wasn't going anywhere. So, showing up after a normal off season and perhaps addressing some of the strength training concerns, eating a lot of rice and beans, whatever he credited with his off-season improvement weight gain plan. It's it stands to reason that it should show up early in the season, that he should be looking like somebody who can hit the ball, especially somebody who's had AAA success. Like, if he's facing guys who are some major leaguers, some fringe pitchers, some guys who are on the edges of the 40-man, or prospects who aren't there yet, like, he should be faring well enough. So I buy that. Like, I buy that he shouldn't have been as awful as he was last year, in that there's somebody who's a better hitter here, and just a matter of, like, when he's facing the best of the best again on an everyday basis in cold weather, is the ball going to travel? Is he going to be doing enough to turn around velocity? That I don't know. And so that, like, I'm not quite buying yet, but the overall package of, like, oh, here's a decent hitter who has some idea what he's doing. I can buy that much. And the fact that there are so many 0 performances in spring training, so many guys showing up and doing nothing, like, whether they're prospects, whether they're veterans, a lot of batting average starting with a 1, that you can't just say it's the environment and that it's bad pitching and everybody rakes in Arizona and the ball's flying out. Like, no, it seems like it's an uneven environment at the best, and the fact that Vargas is hitting and some power and some just hit tool showing up, BABIP's helping him a little bit, but the plate discipline's fine. Like, all that scans in terms of him being somebody worthy of major league at bats for a second division club. It's just a matter of, like, he hasn't answered the question that they're hoping he might get a head start answering last year, but at least he's playing himself into a position where, the out of options situation is not like, White Sox have to carry Miguel Vargas because they've just sunk so much into him, even though he's showing nothing. Like, no, he's back to being the maybe quadruple A player with, signs of more, if he just gets regular playing time, which is, where he should have been last year. And so good, good for him. And that's good for the White Sox. And they have the playing time, be it at third or first or DH, to explore what he can do now that he looks like he's Miguel Vargas again.
On the internet baseball show, very popular, Foul Territory, AJ Brzezinski's on that show. I think everybody in baseball or follows baseball knows the show now. Their recent episode focused on the White Sox, and they had an interview with White Sox manager Will Venable. He was asked who was his pick to click to be a breakout player for the White Sox in 2025, and Venable did pick Miguel Vargas. James, do you agree with Jim's assessment on Vargas? Are you buying what Vargas is doing in spring training?
I would only buy if I was under some arbitrary deadline to make some sort of call on him as a player. Whereas otherwise, I would kind of wait for more information rather than spring training. It's certainly better that he's hitting in spring than in not.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
And this, because he's kind of a hit over power guy, this is what it would look like for him succeeding, but probably being like a 150 ISO sort of dude. It would answer the main questions about him a bit more if he was having a spring where he's just hitting, Trace Thompson like 7 bombs in spring. That wouldn't be like in
Is Trace Thompson up to 7 home runs?
I gift him one. Being a good quote.
Sorry.
But like that's not sort of the type of player he's really supposed to be. So he is looking the part. It's just like power and was the main question. So I'd love if he was just like hitting for an absurd amount of it right now. At the same time, if he hit 6 home runs, we'd kind of just be like, well, this is just not real. So why are we even paying attention to this? I'm not buying, not because like I'm particularly like this is BS. I don't buy into any of it. I did think he had good swing decisions all last year, and it did seem like weird that it got as bad as it was while swinging at the right pitches. That said, like him losing weight over the course of the season and thus losing strength, it really can't be addressed by like him looking good over a short period of time. I want to see him be able to hold that weight over the course of a full season over the grind that previously has given him issues. And given his increased size and the new kind of load of his hands in his swing where it's a little bit more out, I want to, I believe Marcus Thames when he says like he doesn't think that specifically is going to be an issue with people pitching him inside. But given that he's bigger now, I want to see if he's still rotating fast enough where pitches are kind of coming inside on him, if he's going to be effective in that. Because I don't think, as much as like spring training is pitched a lot more complex and a lot more game-like now than, back in the day of like, I'm just working on fastball command. I don't think, if our game plan in the season, especially like they're playing Cleveland, is to bust Miguel Vargas on his hands nonstop until he proves he can handle it. They're probably not necessarily doing that in spring training to the degree he might see it in the regular season. So I think, it's true of anyone that like you can't be sold in their spring, but there's specific things I want to see kind of play out over 6 months with him as far as maintaining a big body difference that can't be answered right now. So if you're forcing me to buy, I'll get combative.
I'm not forcing you to do anything.
Refuse to buy, okay. But I'm saying I'm generally encouraged, but there's a lot more to go.
So is that where White Sox fans are going to have to pay attention to in a couple weeks when Vargas is at the plate against Kikuchi and the Angels pitching staff to see how often he gets beat inside, or I guess wins those battles if he is able to make solid contact on inside pitches?
Theoretically, he could go 3 for 4 off Kikuchi with a pair of homers, and we're like, well, let's see how he looks against right-handed velocity. But yeah, that's something I'm at least watching for him because I don't think he's pretty good at not chasing sliders low and away. He's pretty good at not getting fooled or beating himself in the way that like a prospect like Oscar Colas, beats himself or takes himself out of at bats early that you get frustrated with. It's about him reliably answering the bell when it's kind of a tools challenge, when people are challenging him on bat speed, people are challenging his ability to rotate, people are challenging his ability to handle velocity and drive it or with impact. I think his defense was a little rough, especially early. But as far as like, I don't think he's a guy who's going to like make you pull your hair out about why he's swinging at that, how you're running the bases. It's about, is he physically kind of standing up to the grind of the season and continuing to perform the way he's doing right now?
I am still concerned about his third base defense, but if he can start the season hottish at the plate, then I'm okay. Then I'm okay with what I am expecting to be not great third base defense.
He's fine third base defensively. You just got to pair him with an above average shortstop who's got plus lateral range to each side. So let's peruse the White Sox to see if they got anybody in there who projects to a starter.
Well, again, hopefully Miguel Vargas keeps it up. Curtis Mead of the Tampa Bay Rays this spring is 16 for 26. If you're trying to find buyers during spring training performances, there are some names out there that are having great spring trainings, and Miguel Vargas is one of them. But hopefully some of this does translate over to the major leagues. If Vargas could bat like 250 and slug 450, I'll take that. That'd be much needed for this White Sox lineup. And moving away from White Sox talk, let's talk some overall baseball, as it is fantasy baseball season. This upcoming Saturday, starting around 11 a.m. Central Time, will be the Sox Machine 32-team fantasy baseball league. That's right, you heard me right. 32 teams in the Sox Machine Fantasy League. The reason why we have 32 teams is that it's an experiment that we've been running the last few years with the current crop of baseball players in Major League Baseball. Does it merit expansion to add 2 more teams? And it is quite a bit of a challenge when you are drafting in a 32-team league. I have the second overall pick in this upcoming draft on Saturday. And if I can get everything working, I'll stream and how I'm doing on youtube.com/Sox Machine of the Sox Machine Fantasy Baseball Draft. But James, I hear you dabble in fantasy baseball. So let me ask you a question, sir. If you had the number 1 overall pick in your fantasy baseball league, standard, either head-to-head or roto, standard scoring, who would you take number 1 overall?
I would have to like get my wife's cooperation with this and maybe a couple family members, but I would simulate that I was having some sort of severe medical event that prevented me from taking the pick. So thus I could miss the first couple slots and maybe pick 5th and thus avoid the scrutiny of botching the first pick. I am in a long-term dynasty league. So like our draft is like all prospects that like we haven't considered. Like I have like a whole minor league system of guys I haven't called up yet. So like my first pick was like Jesus Made, like, who I don't know if has like turned 18 yet. And I looked up how to pronounce his name before this podcast, anticipating this question. One of the last times I was in like a straight up like single season, like just draft like your team straight up league with Fornelli a few years back. I want to say like at least one of the years I did it, I had the first overall pick, and it seemed like pretty chalk about what direction we should go. Miguel Cabrera was coming off an MVP season. I was in mind like he's big bodied, he's turning 30. This is about to be young Carlos Stanton's league, and I'm out ahead of this. It turns out Miguel wasn't quite done with his peak run at age 30. That was a Triple Crown year. If you want to go back and check your work, Giancarlo, who could have seen it coming, ran into some injuries that year. Wasn't quite as productive as Miguel Cabrera. So I don't have a lot of confidence as far as the first overall pick I would say Bobby Witt. Let's say that. He did just
he just got hit by a pitch.
Hopefully not again just seconds ago walking around his house as we record this, but I think that's like probably a pretty stable supply of like positional versatility, stealing bases, power, hit tool, just crazy tool out monster, probably best player of the league. Probably should have voted for MVP, not been a coward last year. If anything, just solidified my war with Yankee fans forever. I've had the MVP vote multiple years when it's like been unanimous, and I was like legitimately weighing like going with the number 2 guy, and like I found out it's unanimous. I was like, damn it, I should have been a coward. I should have been taken on the entire country or multiple countries in the case of like voting that like elite Vlad Guerrero year over Shohei Ohtani. So the main thing I didn't do was like immediately answer all the overnight emails I got from like Japanese TV stations like offering me interviews for like $1,000 to do like 2 minutes. Like that was a big fumble. But anyway, Bobby Witt. My answer is Bobby Witt.
Answers Bobby Witt. Jim, how about you? If you had the number 1 pick in your fantasy league, who are you taking?
I haven't played fantasy baseball in like 20 years because I played single season, and I realized that if I'm out of it, it's just a real slog, and I don't want to abandon the league because that's bad for the league, but also like there's no joy. Like I can understand like a dynasty league or like a deep keeper league to where like trades make a difference, and you can start thinking about next year. But when you're not playing for next year, it's like, I don't want to run the risk of, having a couple key injuries in the cellar by May, and there's no point in following the league aside from duty to the rest of the, 10 to 12 or whatever people in the league that you're playing with. So I'm probably not the guy to ask, but I would probably just keep it simple and say Shohei Ohtani, just because of the homer, stolen bases, and the fact that like, I would think if, didn't pick him and then he just had the season that he had last year, I'd be like, why not pick him? Whereas if he gets hurt or something happens and he's not like quite the MVP force that he always is, you could at least say, well, that was weird. But I'm blameless in him looking mortal for once. They've seen Judge, look mortal. Like I don't necessarily trust the Mets having a smooth transition with Juan Soto. Just they have some weirdness when it comes to, production from like Francisco Lindor needed a year to look like himself. Like there's always seems like the honeymoon period ends pretty quickly with the Mets, and then like they spend the next year like saying like it's not that bad, and then everybody salvages value, but there's always that period of unease. So that's why I think I would steer away from Juan Soto. Like Witt, he's carrying a lot of the Royals' hopes on him where like if he gets hit by a pitch, like all of a sudden like it's maybe the Royals should have been more aggressive in supplementing that roster, and so I think they're tempting fate a little bit. So I think I would keep it pretty simple with Ohtani.
So according to Fantasy Pros, the top player so far drafting Shohei Ohtani is number 1, whether if your league allows him to pitch and DH. Has Ohtani been pitching in games for the Dodgers this spring? Is he on track to be pitching this season?
At some point.
So primarily DH, but still Ohtani drafted often first overall, followed by Bobby Witt Jr., Aaron Judge, Eloy De La Cruz for Cincinnati, Jose Ramirez, Juan Soto, Gunnar Henderson, Kyle Tucker, and Mookie Betts. So if you are in a 10-team league, those are the 9 of the 10 most popular picks. And I have the second overall pick. I'm kind of leaning towards De La Cruz of Cincinnati. I feel like he's going to have a big year. I'm on the Cincinnati Reds bandwagon. I've cursed him now in 2025, but I think the Reds are my pick to win the National League Central. I'm a big believer in Terry Francona.
I was thinking a lot of the AL MVP vote, and I kind of forgot Ohtani, and this is exactly why I would fake the heart attack and fall to 5th, so I can make a rational decision that people don't like scrutinize.
So if you're in the fantasy league and you take De La Cruz number 1, I'll probably take Ohtani second overall, but I'm expecting Ohtani to go first overall in the Sox Machine fantasy draft. I'm getting scared with the forearm. I'm getting hit in the forearm by Bobby Witt Jr., but watch, he'll be fine and he'll be an MVP candidate again. But I think De La Cruz could also be an MVP candidate in the National League. And then finally, in Major League Baseball news, the Tampa Bay Rays and their owner sent out a communication on social media, and they also informed City Hall in St. Petersburg, Florida, that they will not be moving forward with their renderings and their initial plans to build a new stadium in St. Petersburg, Florida. If you recall the previous election cycle, it looked like that the Rays had the approval to build a $1.3 billion baseball district in St. Petersburg. Then after the election cycle, new city hall members, new city council members decided to nix that idea. And then Hurricane Milton ripped the roof off the Tropicana Stadium of the Rays, making it unplayable for the 2025 season. The Rays are going to be using the New York Yankees spring training facility in Tampa, Florida, as their temporary home in 2025. But the Yankees have made it clear they cannot play there in 2026. So, Jim, here are the Rays. The owner says we're not going to move forward with the new stadium idea in St. Petersburg. I don't know what to make of this situation if you are a Rays fan. This feels a lot murkier than the Athletic situation. Like, we know the A's are going to be in Sacramento for a couple of years. And then we are expecting them to move to the Las Vegas. That is the expectation, but we'll see if a stadium actually gets built in time for them to make that move. But for the Rays, I have no idea. Where are they going to be playing in 2026? I have no idea. So what do you make of the situation down in Florida for the Rays? And what do you think is the best course of action for the Rays and Major League Baseball?
I think if I were a Rays fan, I might be slightly heartened by this news just because of the Evan Drellich reports, where he said that Rob Manfred and owners are putting pressure on Stu Sternberg to sell the Rays, just because the stadium deal falling through, the fact that, he's not willing to put forth the money to close the deal on what's a pretty good deal for him, I think, all things considered. It seems like Manfred and other owners are thinking like, you don't have the money, or there are ownership groups in the Tampa Bay area where they have the money. They might be able to get something done on the Tampa side of the Bay. And if Manfred wants baseball to succeed there, if he doesn't want to abandon the market, then it seems like there might be something to this. And Drellich wrote about how Manfred could ease up on revenue sharing payments to the Rays, apply financial pressure to get Sternberg to fold. And it seems like, when it comes to bad owners, there are a lot of bad owners in baseball, a lot of, Bob Nutting, you can even say Jerry Reinsdorf, John Fisher, but I would say Reinsdorf is a step above the Nutting group or the Fisher group of just are you even should you even own a minor league team based on the way you handle a major league team? It's you wonder why does a Manfred do this all over to multiple groups? And I think it's one, it's a button you don't want to mash too much, because then you get owners turning against you, because I don't think owners want to turn on each other unless it's a last measure. They're making the league look bad, or you're hampering the entire league's investment. I think John Fisher having enough motion to Las Vegas is probably enough to get the league off his back. But I think if you're a revenue receiving team, and you're not putting that money in the field, but you're also not putting the money towards a stadium, or you're not increasing your asset value, you're not doing anything that might get you out of the revenue sharing tier to where you're not reliant on it. It would seem to me that perhaps that's when the league starts looking askance at the current group, and the owner starts saying we can do better. Yeah, I know person X, and they have a group of Y that might have $1.5 billion and some land that might get this done. So I think with him, with Sternberg backing out, and the city council of St. Petersburg basically saying this bridge has been burned, we don't want to deal with this guy anymore, that might be enough to put what Drellich is reporting into motion a little bit. To be Sternberg has to put up or shut up somehow, whether it's on the other side of the bay, but it's got to be in the Tampa area apparently. And if it's not him, then perhaps it's going to be somebody else. And, the league has forced owners to sell before, like Frank McCourt with the Dodgers. That was a case where just like he did not have the money to run the Dodgers. I think that's maybe a similar situation brewing here based on what's being reported. And this might have been a straw that had to snap in order to have those pieces start actually falling into place.
James, do you think Major League Baseball can work in St. Petersburg, Tampa area, or do you think Major League Baseball may have to consider relocating the Rays to another city in Florida, either Orlando or Jacksonville?
Could it work? Sure. Like, it's a big population center. It's, a very successful franchise. All things. It has a dedicated fan base. It's been there. It could work. Whether or not the systems like are currently in place or like the arrangement with the city or the relationship is conducive to it, seemingly not. So it seems like it's headed towards moving. It seems like it's been something that's been explored on both sides, and the kind of disaster of the hurricane and the needs of the team and the city kind of being put against each other are moving it to this place. But I don't think it's just like this was inevitable or this could have been created or baseball just doesn't work here. I don't think that's the case, but it certainly seems like it's trending towards something that's untenable for current ownership and city relationships. So yeah, I think it's moving, but it's hard to judge anything with the kind of expectations that teams have to have their stadiums kind of funded for them, or what sort of like tax arrangements that they'll have, or what ability to develop around the ballpark that they'll have. I think it's going to be pretty unique about where that fits with the municipality that's really financially where it's viable or there's any kind of political momentum to support it. So with how complicated or how kind of unreasonable it's been to really support a major league franchise, I don't know where is the right answer, but it certainly doesn't seem like things are trending good in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, the Rays have been flirting with the idea, right? The sharing of Montreal and Tampa, that was pitched a few years ago. Play half the season in Montreal, the other half in Tampa. That was ridiculous. AJ Brzezinski on foul territory. He lives in Orlando, says Orlando would be happy to have him. And I'm kind of in that boat. Like if St. Pete can't work, then just move the Rays to Orlando. Build a stadium. It sounds like some people reached out to me on social media. There's plenty of land, I guess, by SeaWorld and where Disney Springs is, that part of Orlando, that you could build a baseball stadium there and take advantage of heavy tourist traffic. Just like Vegas, you'll have opposing teams plan family vacations to go see their favorite teams in Orlando. And we can hit up Disney and Universal and all the fun touristy stuff that you could do in Orlando. I don't know how viable Montreal is as far as moving the Rays up to Montreal. And it really does sound like for Nashville, Major League Baseball wants that sweet $2 billion expansion fee to have a team in Nashville, Tennessee. So I don't think that's viable either. But what a tricky situation here for Major League Baseball. And Rob Manfred said he wants to retire, Jim. You got to figure out homes for the A's and the Rays here pretty soon. A lot on his plate.
Yeah. It seems like, he might have to be comfortable with the concept of unfinished business if he actually wants to retire. Because it seems like it's inevitable that there are going to be some loose threads. I mean, like the Hurricane Milton ripping the roof off the stadium kind of reminds me of like you always hear about like how money pressures are like the number one reason for divorce or like, unhappy marriages. In this case where like you're kind of getting by until all of a sudden like car breaks down or just lose a job. And all of a sudden, the things have been boiling under the surface. Be like, you're spending money on that, or you're not you said you were keeping track of the finances. How are we this deep in debt, et cetera? And all of a sudden, like a month later, papers are being served. That's kind of what reminds me of with the Hurricane Milton of just like, they're pretending things are going okay and kind of moving towards it, but not happy at all. And then this just gave, it seemed like the Sadie an opening to be like, let me look at the way you're keeping the books. And the Sternberg's like, I didn't want to be here anymore. And it just, and then the argument comes out and you say things that can't be taken back, and people are sleeping in separate rooms or separate houses.
Here's a Florida baseball
decided.
development that caught my eye. Miami Marlins practice squad opportunity. Are you a retired collegiate or professional baseball player looking to stay in the game? The Miami Marlins are offering a unique opportunity to join our practice squad at a spring training complex in Jupiter, Florida. Why join? Compete against our low A affiliate. Stay sharp and challenge yourself against professional competition. Gain exposure. Showcase your skills in front of Marlins coaching staff and player development. Pathway to the pros. The opportunity could lead to a potential playing or coaching role with the Marlins organization. This program is designed for former high-level players looking to further develop their skills, whether pursuing opportunities as a player or a coach. I can't think that a better solution would be simply having more minor league players, which the low A affiliate can scrimmage again, like a whole affiliate worth of other players. That would be like a more efficient and better competition for your low A affiliate or for your players in the complex that produce a better product in the end. Be worth it investment wise. I mean, how expensive could like a rookie level affiliate really be to staff? So the economic decisions that baseball makes, they kind of like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I'm not expecting logic to play out here.
Yeah,
so I don't know what's going to happen with the Rays. Something wacky, that's all.
Yeah, when you said A-ball affiliate, it made me think, like, are they doing an end around? Are they creating a short season affiliates by themselves, managing their own competition? Like, are they getting around the partner leagues and creating their own? Like, secretly, like, what if enough teams said, let's have a practice squad, and then our practice squads will play your practice squad for maybe 2.5 months at a complex that will, perhaps, to be determined, but will concentrate them in an area geographically to where they can play each other. And, it'll just be all paid under the table in cash, and perhaps like that's their way around it. But that's kind of what struck me as teams being like, this labor was valuable to us. You have to fill in that shortage somehow. And the market solves its own problems.
I just saw comments like, wow, innovative program. It's like if a factory just like the workers unionized and they responded by laying them off, and then they went to like the unemployment office and like pulled up a pickup truck and say, hey, hop in, to like a bunch of people. Be like, wow, what labor innovation they have here. Disruption of old systems.
Before we end, the Nashville Stars released their concept of a hat that you can buy online. And I love the color scheme, very familiar. Black and white. And the first thing I saw when I was thinking of it was, are they already concepting the White Sox moving to Nashville? But is that the plan, Jim? Is that what you've been hearing? Like if the Stars do become a thing in Nashville, that their primary colors would be like the White Sox, black and white?
It's been, as far as I remember, all their merch, even before the new era cap. I think the only thing that stands out is like the new era is like officially putting their stamp on these caps as like an expansion effort. But even before, when they were just printing out their own gear, it was always in black and white. So I don't think it's like any nefarious designs on luring the White Sox over. I think it's just, there's a tie-in with the Negro Leagues Museum. This Nashville Stars was the name of the Negro Leagues team that played there. So it's just been, I'm not sure whether they were black and white, but just been, that's been the original concept, and everything, as far as I remember, their merch has been black, white, and gray. So probably
their jerseys are black and white in all the photos we have.
Yeah, exactly. It's a case of like, let's not, we can't find any like textiles from the era. So we're not going to bother guessing. We can make fools of ourselves.
Plenty of gray too. Let's mix that in.
Yeah. Sepia. That would be awesome. Actually, like just a team that just messes with the saturation on your TV. If you roll out Daguerre type jerseys. I wouldn't, I saw like a lot of panic just in terms of, White Sox in Nashville, but like, it's everything. Well, especially now that Ishbia is, kind of a greater presence now, like that's even more reason to table any kind of Nashville fears.
Think of the trade deadline stories like, he struggled after the trade with we converted him to sepia tone. His power dissipated. But we're thinking an off season allowed him to like recover and acclimate.
You got syphilis.
Well, Portland has released renderings for their plans. They really want a Major League Baseball team, so we'll see. There's markets that are trying. There's some teams that need to figure out where their long-term home is. And then there's the White Sox situation, which will probably get more clarity on what's happening during the 2025 season. What fun times in Major League Baseball that we are heading into, as opening day is just a couple of weeks away. The Los Angeles Dodgers and the Chicago Cubs have already flown over to Tokyo. So we got actual regular season games happening next week between the Dodgers and Cubs in Tokyo. That's going to be awesome viewing, especially for the Japanese players that are going to be involved in those games. It'll be very exciting to watch those games between the Dodgers and Cubs in Tokyo next week. But we're getting closer, folks, to regular season baseball. Well, that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. If you just discovered the Sox Machine podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, but you can also watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. If you do listen or watch the show on our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. You can follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms. Twitter, we're at Sox Machine. We're on Blue Sky. You can follow us at SoxMachine.com. You can follow James on Blue Sky at jrfegan.soxmachine.com. And you can follow me at josh.soxmachine.com. We're doing more with Instagram. Next week is White Sox Food Day, so we'll be posting a lot of photos and videos from all the new concession items that the Chicago White Sox will be offering for the 2025 season on our Instagram. Follow us there. We're at Sox Machine. Follow James at jrfegan. He'll have photos and videos from White Sox spring training camp in the final week next week. And you can follow me at Sox Machine Josh. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.